to talk to you about InDesign. It's a software that we have at the DHC that we find isn't really used much, when it's actually really fantastic for especially posters, which we know quite a few subjects run projects in that it's quite useful for. So I thought I'd basically show you just how to actually start building something. So I know it's not the most beautiful poster ever, but it's got all the little bits in that you might want to know. So this is what I'm going to attempt to try and recreate for you today. And this is what it will look like in InDesign. As you can see, there's the boxes around it. And basically, I'm going to start with this, which is basically the blank sheet. The first thing is that the images, even though they're very large, they look very pixelated in InDesign. Actually, this is the workspace view. If you press Control and W, Shift and W, you'll see what the image actually looks like. It's actually really, really clear. And the whole reason it is because InDesign will actually make sure that what you actually see when you're working with it is actually the kind of almost the lowest quality possible, just to stop the computer stopping the computer from lagging and making sure that you can work very quickly. But you can check at any point in time what you're making looks like just by Shift and W. It means that if you're using PowerPoint, for example, if you use a lot of images, it will just slow down and then it takes you ages because you have to wait for it to actually load and move into the right position. Alright then, well, the first thing I was going to show you, this is your toolbar, and this has got basically everything you're going to want to use. You'll notice firstly that images have two boxes. There's the blue one and then there's the orange one. The orange one is the actual size of the image itself, so you can adjust the size, and if you hold down Shift again, it just keeps the image the same, whereas if you move it around normally, it will distort the proportions of the image. And the blue one is so you can move the whole image, or if you drag down these markers, crop the image. So it basically works that you've got two frames, and through that you can manipulate the image in basically any way you could want. It can get confusing at sometimes because when you've accidentally picked up the wrong frame, you'll move it out of the way. Just go back and then just double click and you'll go to the other frame. And this tool here is a shape tool. It's a rectangular tool, and basically you can just draw shapes. And the whole point with this, I was going to select a colour. Actually,
I'm sorry to interrupt, the big screen is cropping the edge.
Is
so
it?
you can't actually see the toolbar you're
right,
pointing
sorry
to.
about that. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to interrupt.
No, honestly, it's better to say sorry about that, I didn't realise. Is that still another?
Yeah,
fantastic, thank you. Yeah, basically, I'm going to try and recreate this blue box here. If it will actually. Sorry about this. Okay, now it's already done what I just put in. Basically, you can basically just draw the shape, and then you can change the colours and the borders as well here. You can add in difference so that you can frame the shape, and then you can even move here. Usually it will come up. Sorry, it's now being. Right, it usually will come out like this. This is the full colour, and then what you can do with this box here is you can actually make it. Sorry, I can't think of the word now. Basically, you can make it more transparent. So here is 63%, which will mean you can actually lay things underneath it and it will shine through, or you can just create a paler box. I'm going to now look into this little bar here, which is the big image here that's very pixelated. You can just simply crop down using these lines. Drag it over, and as you can see, it's now behind that. If you right click, you can use arrange, and it will send whatever you've got highlighted to wherever you want it to. This toolbar basically has all of your transforming options. You can rotate and move them around this way. And then the benefit of InDesign as well is when you print it, and if you can save them to PDF and you can print it, you usually find there's less issues than if you put onto a PowerPoint presentation. And even better is if you can save them to JPEG images, which you can do through InDesign very easily. Just going to move some more of the images into place. And again, if you want to shrink the size, it's the orange box, and just shift down. And sorry, there's a lot of repetition. Yeah, basically. Okay, and now in putting in the text, you can basically copy any text from Word. We'll just let you implant things. And you'll see here there's a little box here. It means basically the text box it's created is actually too small, so it's actually cropped. The text, it's still there. If you just click that, you can then insert another column. And basically the benefit of this is that when I then move this column, it will just carry the text over. So if you wanted to create a book or a leaflet or booklet, you can actually have text on several pages, and if you edit it or slightly change the format, you don't then have to go back and completely rearrange the page. It will just transfer it over for you. Also, one thing I've noticed when people come in to make posters for projects in particular, they want to use data from things like Excel and tables and pie charts. Pie charts that they've created in Excel, you can just copy and paste straight over from the document, but tables are a little bit more... tables you can still use, they're just, if you save them in a Word file, you can also do this with Excel documents as well. And then go back to InDesign. If you go to File, and Place, it will come up with your documents. You just select the file that you're after. It will then come up with another cursor, and if you just click wherever you'd like to place it, you will actually get your table. And then you can move it like any other object, and then you can manipulate it here as well. You can change the colours and actually stretch out, or you can fit it to text. If you also want to just hide bits of it, again you can just crop it like an image, so that you can just sort of, you can actually manipulate it as far as you want to. This tool creates lines, a bit like the shape tool, and you're able to change the colour, and also if you just want to change the width by point size, it's a lot easier to do that as well. If you wanted to create text straight in InDesign, you can use the text tool and just draw yourself a text box. The one reason I don't type straight into InDesign is there isn't actually a spell check, but it will be compatible with Microsoft Word if you just copy and paste straight over. Yeah, basically I'll just move some more images over. You can basically move images around really quickly, and as you can see it doesn't lag at all. Whereas if you're moving very high quality images around, or just big files around using other softwares, it can lag completely. It can basically just take a long time for it to actually load and do what you want it to. And you can always check the quality of what you're doing by pressing Shift and W again. And then it will bring up what actually your document's going to look like. No matter how many layers you use on InDesign, it shouldn't ever slow down. It's purely designed so that you can work quickly and get through, just create the most dynamic piece of work using as many different file formats. You can even embed videos into these files if you're going to present it as a PDF on a computer, as opposed to printing it out. I think the history department do their presentations on the computer still, so they've designed a poster and they're still able to put things in like that. I've just basically overlaid the two boxes just to double check that they're the same size. There are more complex ways of doing that if you want to use the options, but I find it's just the easiest way. And then you just insert titles and things the same. With InDesign, like most software, it's very easy to just change the texts as you would in any Microsoft software. You have abundance of different text options. You can download more text as you can in other softwares very easily. You can change the point size, and then you also have very, very easy access to changing things like how far the actual letters are between each other using this box, and also if you're going to be using references, you can't actually just copy and paste the references straight over, but you can actually put in the numbers by creating this, and I will zoom in and show you that. If basically, when you do have a reference, it will come up like this, where you have a large number 1 as opposed to the smaller one that you would like. And you just literally just click on that icon and it will come up there. It does mean that you then have to go back and paste in your link, your referencing later in a different box, but it's still easy to do and it shouldn't slow anything down. An idea is to also make sure that the boxes are as close as they can be, otherwise you end up with lines all over the place and it can get a little bit. And one thing I have been doing a lot is, especially when it's highlighted something I didn't want it to, if you go back to this arrow key, especially with the text, it will basically that's just your point tool and it will let you just click on anything. I've been editing text, you can't really click away because it's still on a text tool. If you click onto the arrow, you can basically move anything you could possibly want to around your image. My intention was to actually rebuild the PDF for you, but I think that actually might take quite a bit longer than I thought it was going to. So do you guys have anything you want me to show you in particular that's relevant to what you're doing at the moment?
How would you make another page?
But basically, if you wanted to make another page, you can either, when you open InDesign, I get the toolbar. Okay. Basically, if you just go to Pages here, you can create new page, and you can make a document as big as you want, and it will show you the pages in the right order. And when you print it, it will actually print them in the right order as well. Which I know I had a group come in a little while ago, and they'd actually made a booklet on Word, and then when they printed it, because they'd printed it in the way that it looked on the screen, it actually meant that they couldn't fold it in the way that it wanted to, whereas it will actually print the pages in the right order. So when it does print, it looks a bit disjointed and a bit awkward, but when you fold it, it does actually fit together. Is there what did you say?
The images you're using on that page, you've got them overlapping outside the baseline. Does that just automatically crop them at the edge of the page?
Yes, definitely. Basically, it will just cut off at there. And what you can also do, if you're going to actually print it and you want a good quality, is if you go to File and Document Setup, here you'll see Bleed, and if you just put a few millimetres into here, it will come up with this red line. And basically this will go beyond the page, and if you then line up all your images to that and print it, it will actually print over the page so that it will crop down, so you actually be able to print right to the edge of the page, which you can't really do very well in like PowerPoint or Word or anything like that. So you can actually print right to the edge.
And
yeah,
you can kind of do it with sort of extra pictures to the side but not on the page, so you can be checking what it looks like or the print quality by swapping different pictures over but still having them open.
Do you mean you can check the print quality before?
No, I mean you've got your border.
Yeah.
That if you wanted to choose between 2 or 3 different images, could you have them all open to the left of your page,
Yeah, definitely.
but just kind of swap them over and check the print quality, or even run a test print or something,
Yeah,
with it still there, so you kind of got it all cropped down to the right size.
definitely. Yeah, basically you can use this area as a workspace. You can just drop things in and then play around with them later, which is sometimes really helpful when if you're working with lots of different aspects like tables and text and images. And then you can place them in whenever. And when you print, basically it will keep your file won't be touched. It will all be there, so then you can just rearrange them and print it again. If you wanted to save your images, so save what you've made, the best way to save it is into PDF. And usually press quality will do anything you can possibly want it to. And you'll get a very nice and crisp PDF that you can then put onto screens. What other projects are you guys are working on at the moment?
Posters. We want to hand a poster in for portfolio too. Print it out. But on another subject, how do you actually embed say a YouTube movie onto a PDF in this software?
Right, basically, if you wanted to put a video in, you can basically place it as a URL. I've only done this on CS6, so I'm now going to look like a bit of a fool. If you go to place, if you've got the file saved, you should actually just be able to place it in, like, using that. Or if it's a URL, then you are able to. Where is it? I think with the URL. Basically, with the URL as well, you have to make an interactive PDF, which is what I'm actually going to be doing in 2 weeks' time. I'll be doing a presentation just on that. So if you're still interested in that, come on to that one. But for an uninteractive PDF, you can literally just use that place and then put a video in. It will mean that your file size is quite big because you've got the actual image saved there, whereas the URL, it will obviously link to somewhere else, and therefore your file size will be kept quite small. But it will mean that you can then just click and you'll have your video, and you can even, you can actually move the text box around, and actually you can shrink the size of the text box or open it,
Okay.
so you can control how much of your page is the video as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, some effects that work really well are actually, if you do play around with this, you can actually put some very nice backgrounds in, even if it's just a block colour, because you can play around with the face and you can put an image behind that and then paste colour over the top. And it's you can play around with it. Actually, if you click on the arrow, you'll even get a little sliding bar where you can play around with it, or just type in a number and see where you want to go with it. Yeah, is there any other questions at the moment? Oh, hiya.
Yeah, sure. Could you demonstrate how you get lengthy text to sort of spill over several pages?
Oh yeah, sure, definitely. Basically, if I just delete that text box there, you can see how the little crosses come up here again. If you just click on that and just drag it down to the next page, and then you'll get another text box there. And then basically, when I move this text box, the text should change on the other page as well.
Okay.
So then, if for example you made your text and then you wanted to put another image in, you can place your image in, and if you wanted it to be in the middle of the text as well, you can. Place it there, and then click. Here's some other tool options. If you wrap around the text at the top, it will actually make the text separate, and then that will also change where the text is. So it means you don't have to then copy the paste. You don't have to copy the text for one page and then have a separate box. It will actually automatically sort that out for you.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. Are there any other questions about projects at the moment? I wanted to try and make it as relevant to what actually was going on, and I've been talking to some history students and classics students about what their projects are. But I don't know, is there anything else other than what I said?
It's compatible with most images, isn't it? So ones you get off Google Images, as well as ones you've taken on cameras and that sort of thing.
It'll be compatible with absolutely everything. Even if you wanted to take something from Adobe Illustrator, which is drawn not even using pixels, it will keep it will use that absolutely perfectly fine, and it won't have any issues with it at all. Yeah, there'll be no file issues at all. Yeah, it works with all the other Adobe softwares very well as well. If you wanted to do anything on Photoshop where you wanted to, like, I don't know what software Archaeology creates their diagrams and plans with, but if you wanted to edit anything like that and then put it in, there'll be no issues with it changing the proportions or anything. Was there anything else about, is there anything that I've gone over too quickly? I haven't really done this before, so if you want me to...
Maybe some of just the main cursors down this side.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
top,
that's
some of the main things you might need to click on.
Thank you. Sorry. Again, has it gone off the side of the page? Yeah, it has. Sorry. Basically, again, you have, this is your selection tool, where you can grab everything. And then you have your text tool to draw toolboxes. This one will draw lines, and I always find that because it's very sensitive, especially if you're using a mouse that isn't actually connected to a computer, and if you just use a line, even if it's just the side of the page, you can usually draw it very well. And it will actually give you the angles and in the little boxes, and you can then re-edit them. If you also draw a line and then try and, if I click on there again, if you then wanted to change the angle, it will also come up with the angle if you wanted to get it directly 90 degrees the other way, or however you fancy. But it will give you all of those options. You can sort of control it very well. And the pen tool is not necessarily for drawing images, but basically it will allow you to do things like adding anchor points and deleting anchor points. So you're not restricted to a crop that's just a square. You can, when you actually select a box, you see these squares, these are the anchor points. And so by going here, and then if I wanted to delete an anchor point, if I click there, it will become a triangle, and you can add these in as many as you want. If you wanted to crop round an image to make like a circular shape, or a bit of an odd shape around an image or a diagram, if you wanted to crop out part of it, you can do that through that. And again, it won't slow down because you've just added in that more complexity. It will be fine with that. Again, you can draw shapes, and you can fill them in. You can basically, even with text boxes, you can use them like shapes and just fill in colours. Also with a lot of texts, you'll find that if you wanted to put anything into italics or bold, they actually have the options already there for you. So there isn't really an external way of changing things. There are some texts. I know one in particular is called Roman D. Doesn't actually have any options, which is a bit of a pain, but quite a lot do, and especially if you wanted to use something that's quite common, like Calibri, which is what Word uses on default, then there's lots of options that you can use. The zoom tool will work, but I find that the thing that works best is if you hold down Control and then use your plus and minus keys. It just means it's just quicker than having to click away, especially when you're sometimes using a lot of boxes and a lot of lines, because yeah, and it just keeps things a bit simpler when you've got lots of boxes going around. If you wanted to move something so that it is in line, these little green lines will come up and it will tell you what is in line, so that even if you do move something, if it's just very, very slightly out, you'll know that it doesn't line up with, for example, up there, it doesn't line up until you drag it down, which means you can get very, very perfect transition if you wanted to get columns together, or if you wanted to line up photos with columns and things like that. Are there any other?
Can you group easily, like Word?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If you just highlight everything again using Shift, and then right-click and just group, and then you can move it all together. You can do this with as many different objects as possible. I was working a little while ago where I had to group about 200 photos, and it moved it just clicking, and the photos were all very, very high resolution. It was just that because it saves exactly what it can see and not the actual whole file type to that desktop, then you're able to move it around very quickly. And if you wanted to see what it looks like, again, just Shift and W. It's going to take a second to load now. Yeah, you can just see what you'd actually want to put, what would actually print. Are there any other questions about how you'd actually want to use it?
What sort of project have you used it for?
I've used it for my art history project in the second year, where we go away and we have to then create a study diary of a trip. And it can basically contain anything, and they encourage it to be as wild as you can possibly want. So I've put in videos, and I've put in as much different types of information as I've gathered, because a lot of it's based on photos because it's with art history. So I've been able to put them all in together, have a booklet, and then just print it out and not have to worry about putting it together myself.
Why does it do that thing where it's done it a couple of times where you click it and then you drag it and then the image just appears, and then what makes it do that?
Do you mean when I did that and it's sort of gone?
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, yes. Because you have the two different lines, the orange one is the actual image itself, and then the blue one, where it's gone? If I move it across, the blue one is the crop line. So actually, you can have the instance where you have the crop line over here, and then your image over here. You can. Basically, it will only show what's in the crop box, which is the same with things like text and tables, and that basically, it means that you have complete flexibility as to what you want to put in, but sometimes it means things do disappear. But if you just use Control and Z, it will just undo everything you've done all the way back, so you can find it again. But yeah, that's the one thing I find the most infuriating, is once you've clicked, you thought you've got the right coloured line, and you haven't. But if you just double click, it will just change back again, and then you can move it. And again, you can move it any way you want. And if you just hold down Shift, it will keep all the proportions the same as well.